This is the only way to get your college football week started off on the good foot. It is the kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. And though it ain't been necessarily the week-to-week rotation, we are back and better than ever, baby. That is Skubie Mageza. I'm Treavor Scales, here to take care of you as we work through the college football playoff. Just had a quarterfinal round. Maybe not just, but it happened. So we got to review it, remind you of what happened as we work into this semifinal round. So let's kick things off with that Oregon and Texas Tech tilt. The Orange Bowl. Ducks were seemingly disappointed with how their defense performed against James Madison. I don't know why, but either way, they were extra motivated to pitch a shutout against Baron Morton and the gang. Unbelievable performance, 23-0. Skubie, do you think that the Ducks have the best defense remaining of the final four teams left?
I can see why you would ask that question, especially since they're coming off of a shutout
and
win.
Our producer told us that.
Exactly. But no, I don't believe that they have the best defense left in the CFP. I think that is Miami, and I'll elaborate more on that a little bit later on, but mainly because of that front seven. But as it relates towards Oregon, yes, they have a great defense. They're coming off of a good shutout. And Brandon Finney Jr., that's a guy who had 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery, and 6 tackles in the win against Texas Tech. And, oh, by the way, as I think back to their matchup against Indiana, he had a pick 6 in that loss to them. So he's a playmaker. You got Uliangale, who's a playmaker.
Yep.
They got playmakers all over that defense, but I don't think that they are the best defense left.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you, especially on that Miami tip. I will say, though, identify as an identity. They are built across that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball that makes it hard to argue against their physicality and their brand and how they want to win games on a week-to-week basis. So, no, they may not be the best, but they're dang good, and they will pose a challenge to Indiana, especially having already seen this team leading into this game.
Yeah, and I will say offensively, one thing that they need to get right before they get right is their running game. I mean, you're averaging about 1.9 yards per carry against Texas Tech, but they did continue to try and run the ball over 48 times.
48.
So you commit towards a run game, you commit towards physicality, but you're going to need that to work for you because when they went against Indiana early on in the season, they averaged 2.7 yards per carry. And when you're going against an offense like Indiana, the running game is something that's going to help you stop that offense from being on the field, and you get to stop that pass rush. And I believe Dante Moore got sacked 6 times when they played early in the air, and the best way to stop a pass rush is to have a good running game.
No question. Also on that same tip of having the opposing, you being able to pitch a shutout, Baron Morton ain't Fernando Mendoza, nor is that offense as a whole the same. In any case, let's move over to the Rose Bowl. Indiana absolutely blowing the doors off of Bama out there in Pasadena. Unbelievable job by the Hoosiers to dominate a Bama team that, frankly, had skated by the past few weeks of the season, getting past Oklahoma, but it really was dominance from the get-go. A 38-3 final doesn't even necessarily, it's not necessarily indicative of just how dominant this performance felt at times. Like, it felt like they switched jerseys, if you will, right? The whole flow switched up as far as the team that felt like they were supposed to be there, that felt like they were supposed to just dominate physically, were in the Indiana jerseys, and that's not something we're, frankly, used to seeing, Scoop.
No, I mean, 2 years ago, this is a 3-9 football team, and we're not thinking that Indiana is going to dominate Alabama. Indiana, Alabama'd Alabama.
That's right.
That's how it felt like. From start to finish, it was complete and utter dominance. Listen, Alabama had 193 total yards. Fernando Mendoza threw for 192 yards. They outgained them by 214 yards, the most Alabama has been outgained since 2007. And it is dominance in a physicality perspective because this is a football team that loves to run the ball, that loves to be physical. And just taking a look at Kurt Signetti, and we call this a tag board in media, but it's really just some of the funny stuff that we've seen on social media. Me inspecting the car after my kid took it out last night. I mean, Kurt got the mean mug on the sideline all the time.
Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Bauer were talking about it in the booth. They said that this is an instant meme, and they were absolutely right because we have plenty of examples. If I send this to you, it means I know that what you're trying to do, and I have 11 fundamentally sound assassins lined up and waiting to absolutely destroy you. He's a psychopath, and I love it for the Indiana brand. I think he embodies everything that a college football coach should be. Because
first
he
down,
has
incomplete touchdown. It's so
it
true.
Don't change,
it's
bro.
so true.
It don't change.
But that's indicative towards the team's character and the team's personality, right? Because a lot of the times, your team's personality is reflective of their head coach.
No question.
Indiana doesn't have the most talent left in the CFP, but they execute at the highest level. And one would think, oh, this is a team that likes to pass the ball. But no, they like to run the ball a lot more. You look over throughout the entire season, they've ran the ball over 200 times more. You look over to their two running backs, Hemby and Black.
Yep.
They both have more rushing yards than the receivers have receiving yards for Indiana. And you got the Heisman winner, the guy that's supposed to be the first overall draft pick as your quarterback, and they're running the ball more. That tells you something about how physical they want to be.
And I think one of the other things that stuck out to me in having reviewed this roster and what it's comprised of, there are a lot of old heads starting on this roster.
Facts.
And you cannot undervalue the amount of experience walking into a semifinal round for Indiana Hoosiers team that really has shown that they've got all that you could ever want from a championship roster construction standpoint. Moving on to the game that I don't want to move on to, frankly. Ole Miss, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans. Buddy, it was the Trinidad Chandler show. This play in particular embodies everything that happened. He had magic cooking. And we had our production call yesterday, Skubie. I was trying to sort of find the words to describe what this loss felt like, how it happened. Ain't no other explanation other than you had a generational performance from one Trinidad.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And sometimes you run into that buzzsaw. 39-34 have all the issues you want with Mike Bobo and his play calling and the mismanagement of the game towards the tail end of it. But I really do think that this Ole Miss team is playing inspired, has a chip on their shoulder like no other, and they got a quarterback in the middle of it all that's in all likelihood going to come back next season that can work some magic when you absolutely need him to. Were you surprised by this result?
Oh, yeah, I was completely surprised, and I'll tell you why I was surprised. Towards the end of the first half, I saw Ole Miss make two mistakes. They went for two when they really didn't need to go for two, and then they completely botched the clock management towards the end of the half by not getting the field goal off, by avoiding going out of bounds.
Fourth down. It was a mess.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I'm like, okay, Kirby Smart's going up at halftime, up 9 points. They're just going to make sure that they hold on to this lead, and they're going to make the necessary adjustments. But I did not see Pete Golding being the one to outcoach Kirby Smart, the national championship winning coach Kirby Smart. Two things stick out to me. The mismanagement on fourth down in the fourth quarter from their own 33-yard line. There was an injury timeout. Kirby Smart had time to think about it. He gets a team back out there to go for it on 4th and 2. What happens? Gunnar Stockton gets sacked. Ole Miss gets the ball in short position. They score a touchdown. A 3-point game becomes a 10-point game. Mismanagement number 2. With the game tied, under a minute left, Kirby Smart decides to call a pass play, which ends up resulting in the clock stopping. Ole Miss gets the ball back. They have plenty of time to go down the field and score. So this was just complete mismanagement on Kirby Smart, in my opinion. That's why I was shocked, not necessarily because of the result. I was like, you guys are in control.
Yeah, and I'm going to push back on a couple different regards, though, right? So on that fourth down that they went for, if the left tackle just blocks anybody.
That was bad.
Right? If he blocks anybody, it's not a sack. We're probably looking at a completely different story.
That was bad.
Secondarily, I do agree with you that the clock absolutely should have and could have been managed better to the end of that game. But again, what you ran into from a Trinidad Chandler standpoint, I don't know that there was a whole lot stopping that brother that night. Dude just had all the answers for any of the situations that Georgia put him in. I wanted to coach up the safety on that blitz on the third down where he ended up running a full question mark around the defense. You know, take the upfield shoulder, prevent him from doing the scramble drill where you see scouts chasing him with the broom on pro day, prevent all of that from happening by just rushing upfield shoulder and make the tackle. However, you can coach anybody up all you want to, but when a dude is in a flow state like Trinidad Chandler was, I don't know that there's a whole lot preventing it. So I agree that there were some misdealings from a coaching standpoint. Not going to deny that. I just do think that there are some intangibles going on with Ole Miss right now that are hard to stop. And Georgia was the latest victim.
I will say this for Georgia, though, which irked me earlier in the game. I think it was Browne, the safety, the one that ended up getting kicked out for a targeting call.
That was brutal, too.
When you reevaluate the game, you say, man, you could have really used the safety back
100%.
there to help you cover some of those passes. So I think from that perspective, Georgia was playing with maybe a couple
reason.
fingers. Those are some things that definitely hurt a team. And out of NCAA, you need to fix the schedule and you need to fix the targeting rule. And we're going into 2026. That should be one of your New Year's resolutions because you can't kick players out in the middle game. That was a bang play, and now he gets kicked out of an important game. And that was the player that they needed.
It winds up being a decider. No question about it. More on New Year's resolutions in just a little bit, but we got more on the quarterfinal round. That being Miami and Ohio State. And frankly, this was the game that surprised me the most, Scoob. I think this Miami team was certainly well equipped enough to make this run that they have to this point to the semifinals. But the way that they defeated Ohio State by completely shutting down any semblance of offense from the Buckeyes, that pick six by Keontae Scott obviously proven to be the game winner. I love the Jim Thorpe pose, by the way.
Yeah.
Run back, which is super tough as far as the celebration goes. But I digress because this Miami team obviously built top to bottom with the best talent potentially remaining in this field. But it's still, everybody wants to know, can Cristobal continue to do it on this stage? And so I was really shocked by this result more than any of the others.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. But then as I continued to look at this Miami team, I was like, wow, they're very reminiscent of the Michigan teams that Ohio State used to lose to over and over again. The Michigan team that won the national championship because, one, they can get after the quarterback, and two, they can run the ball really well, and three, they have a quarterback who just knows how to manage the game, who's experienced. Right now, if you just look back at what this defensive front is doing, Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor, 7 sacks against Texas Tech in round 1, 5 sacks against Ohio State. They have the most sacks in the CFP and the most that we've seen in the CFP era right now as it stands. They're currently on a 6-game winning streak. We know what it is with that ever since they lost to SMU. And during that streak, they're only allowing 9 points per game. So they've locked in. Mark Fletcher, their running back, is playing his best ball. He got hot at the right time. This is the best he's playing. He's accounted for 50% of their offense in the CFP. They're going through him, and I think this team is clicking at the right time in the important places of an offense. Because if you got it rolling in your front 7, then you're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, dudes are just leaning on the opposition, and it's working because they are physically better than just about anybody that you're going to face across both front lines of scrimmage. More on this in just a second.
All right, it's time now for our Unstoppable Performances presented by Ram Trucks. Let's take a closer look now at the semifinals. Matchup number 1 is in the Peach Bowl, Oregon, Indiana. This is now the 6th regular season rematch in CFP history. The regular season loser won the CFP rematch in 4 of the previous 5 instances, but no matter who takes this one, the Big Ten is guaranteed a team in the national championship. The conference is seeking its 3rd straight national champion. Oh, people talking about SEC bias, but it is time now to bring in a great guest into our show to help bring some knowledge. Max Browne joining the program. And Max, the headline here is a rematch where Indiana was able to go on the road, beat Oregon in that game, and they let everybody know that they're here for real. So what have we learned about these teams since the last time they played each other?
But not only they're here for real, but here to stay. I mean, you look at what the storylines were before that game. It was, Indiana had a nice 2024 season, but that's a one-hit wonder for Curt Cignetti. They go to Eugene, pull the upset, and then not only is it, hey, Indiana's a Big Ten title contender, but they're a national title contender. And then Fernando Mendoza went from, hey, he's a nice transfer portal quarterback to on a path to not only win the Heisman, but potentially be the #1 overall draft pick. And then on the Oregon side of things, I think it's easy to fall into, just because the history of what Oregon's been and then what they do in the portal, to always think they're a high-flying, explosive offense, going to score a ton of points and have a ton of athletes. They have a ton of athletes, but that has not been their identity this year. Their identity has been on the front 7 defensively, control the rock offensively, but it hasn't been the high-flying offense that I think a lot of people thought heading into the year.
No question. They have been physical as all outdoors. Frankly, both of these teams have a primary purpose of beating you up, and then they want to win the game in the process, it feels like a lot of times when they're out there competing. But you mentioned the idea of Fernando Mendoza playing himself into potentially the #1 pick in the NFL draft next year. Dante Moore right there with him with regards to his NFL prospects. Which of these two QBs has more to gain in this Peach Bowl?
It's got to be Dante Moore, because I don't know how much more Fernando Mendoza can gain, because he's already got the Heisman, and if the NFL draft were tomorrow, Mendoza would likely be the #1 overall pick. So it's got to be Dante Moore. And for not only obviously he would want to be #1 pick, but right now, if Dante Moore is the #2 pick, well, the New York Jets are sitting at 2. And ask Sam Darnold how that went for him as a top round pick. I don't know if Dante Moore necessarily wants that. And an intriguing storyline that I'll be watching is, remember, Dante Moore started 2023 at UCLA as a true freshman. He showed the discipline to transfer to Oregon, to sit out a year, to better his future. My point there, though, is that I could see Dante Moore going back to school and saying, let me develop even more. Let me get $5 million, which is what we're saying the market is for a top-end quarterback.
Yep.
I'll chill, and I don't have to play for the Jets, and I'll see you in the next year's draft. That's an intriguing storyline I'm watching.
No question. And two, so a couple different things that I want to touch on with you. One, the dichotomy of Fernando Mendoza being the face of a Raiders organization is actually hilarious to me, because I always think of him with a perpetual smile, and that Raiders organization is not built around dudes
Vegas,
smiling.
right?
That's not a thing. But also, when it comes to each of these quarterbacks and the rosters constructed around them, who has the better sort of equipment walking into this game around them? Because I imagine both have different philosophies offensively to an extent, but both have the weapons around them to thrive in a sense.
Yeah, Mendoza might be the best Raiders quarterback because all the Vegas temptations. I don't know if that's really Mendoza's DNA.
Right?
So we'll see there. Yeah, I mean, I would go Indiana right now in terms of the supporting cast. I mean, you look at Charlie Becker and Elijah Surratt. Those are two guys that, you wouldn't have said, oh, Indiana's got weapons back in the first month of the season. Now I'm saying that, and they showed that versus Ohio State. Like, we know the talent on paper that Oregon has. But right now, I mean, Indiana's looking like the complete team. I do think Oregon is playing their best football, which will be an incredibly interesting to watch in terms of, are they peaking at the right time? But right now, man, the Hoosiers are dialed on all facets of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fascinating matchup, especially with those two crazy head coaches. You got Kurt Cignetti and Dan Lanning. Yes, psychopath to the definition of it. And to your point earlier about Dante Moore coming back, we spoke to Mel Kiper on the Cheez-It Bowl show, and he was saying the same thing. He thinks Dante Moore should come back and get a little bit more experience. And shoot, you might as well. College is fun. I know I enjoyed it. Why not stay and try and enjoy it? But one thing we know about this Indiana team, man, is that they have very little flaws. So if Oregon wants to get this win, what will be the X factor for them?
I look at Oregon's receiver room, and when I was on with you guys last time before the holidays, I said the same thing in terms of that might be the X factor, not only of this game, but the entire college football playoff. And the reason is Oregon was banged up at the receiver room pretty much all October and November. In that bowl game versus Texas Tech, they got DeCorian Moore back. They got some of those other pieces. They have Kenyon Sadiq, who I think's the best tight end. If we watch this game and a half dozen red zone or third down plays come down to the Oregon receivers making those one-on-one matchups, that to me is the key, because I think Oregon has the talent to do it, but they haven't shown it consistently because they haven't been healthy. Now they're more healthy given the month off that they've had. That to me is the key that Indiana's got to stop as well.
And despite the fact that they tried to run the ball 48 times, they weren't necessarily successful against Texas Tech, right? So their commitment to that facet of their game needs to be supplemented by something. So hopefully the Oregon receiver's health really does play into Dante Moore's hand in that regard. Now, got to pin you down, though, as far as a prediction for this here tilt. What you got for us, Max?
I'm sticking to my word when we gave predictions back in December, and I had Oregon pulling the upset. I got the Ducks in this one. For the classic football adage of it's hard to beat a team twice, but I think back to what Oregon had to go through last year. Remember, the biggest game in the 2024 regular season was that Oregon-Ohio State game. Oregon got it done in the regular season. Ohio State comes back and beats them in the Rose Bowl and then ultimately wins the national title. I think it could be a reverse this situation where Oregon lost to Indiana in the regular season. They come back and beat the Hoosiers. I think they're peaking at the right time. I think their front seven's elite, and it's an opportunity for Dante more to maybe say, hey, maybe I should be the first overall pick if he outduels Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, what was the number you said at the top of this? Four of the last
five instances.
Yeah. Look, as soon as you see a team in the regular season, the adage goes, it's hard to beat a team twice, but it pans out more often than not. Max, hell of a bowl season. We appreciate you joining us here on the Kickoff presented by Ram Trucks, buddy.
It was fun. Thanks, fellas.
All right, from the A to the desert for the Fiesta Bowl between the Miami Hurricanes and the Ole Miss Rebels. Hurricanes currently on a 6-game winning streak, allowing less than 20 points per game in that span. Ole Miss also getting rolling. 7 straight dubs since October 18th when they lost to the Dogs. Both teams in their CFP debut. Only team to win the title in its college football debut was LSU in 2019, and we knew what it took to get to that point. Miami also looking to play in the national title game in their hometown. Heather Dinich, far from home, but always repping, joining us here on the Kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. And as we get right to it, regarding that Fiesta Bowl, this is a matchup between two teams. No one expected to be here, rather. Miami obviously having to skate in by the skin of their teeth on the college football playoff announcement. And obviously Ole Miss just kind of hung around in the right spot at the right time. But which of these teams' run to the CFP semifinals is more improbable in your eyes?
I would say Ole Miss, because Ole Miss had a head coaching change during the season. There was a point when everyone was asking me, is Lane Kiffin's departure to LSU going to change their place in the selection committee's weekly rankings? The answer was no. But because you have that and so much drama with the coaching staff, to me, that makes it a little bit more improbable. Plus, the fact that they beat Georgia was significant and, at least to me, surprising. This is a team that had, of the 8 teams left at that point in the playoff, the worst scoring defense. Not bad, just okay. And they certainly played better in the first half against Georgia.
No question.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Heather. Earlier in the show, I said I was shocked that Ole Miss was able to beat Georgia. But when I look at Ole Miss right now, it's fascinating how they're coaching staff is splitting time between Ole Miss and recruiting for LSU. Now, Trev and I both played football. We know how important it is to have your assistant coaches, because it's not just the head coach that you spend a lot of time with. It's those assistant coaches. So how concerned should Ole Miss fans be that their coaches are splitting time and some of those coaches won't be at the Fiesta Bowl coaching?
I spoke with Ole Miss coach Pete Golding earlier this week and asked him about that, and he really downplayed any significance of having this coaching, for lack of a better word, turmoil heading into the Fiesta Bowl. He said, look, coaches do this all the time where they're juggling 2 responsibilities. He said Oregon's Dan Lanning, both of his coordinators took head coaching jobs. They're still doing their thing. So he said, this is going to be fine, and whoever is there. One interesting thing, guys, that he pointed out was the rule in college football where there's not a limit anymore to the number of coaches who can be on the sideline. So he said, we've got plenty of elite coaches on our staff, but the important thing to know is the play callers haven't changed. Offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. has been allowed on loan from LSU to continue to coach with them, along with the running backs coach Kevin Smith.
That's funny, like on loan, as if it's an international footy term in essence with regards to your coaching staff. But Heather, I just also think that is also played into Ole Miss's run, right? The idea of F them all, if they're going to leave, we're going to be all right regardless, has sort of inspired this team to a new level as well. But when it comes to what they face in Miami, what's something that makes spell concern when it comes from that Canes perspective?
Well, defensively, Miami's defense has been so good. And when you look at them the last game, the way that they were able to play game-changing plays, and under Mario Cristobal, they're 8-0 when Miami's defense scores a touchdown. But Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, talked this week about how he's got to have a timer in his head because he's got to be able to be ready for that defensive front coming after him, because they're certainly going to try and get after him.
Yeah, they're so special. it's the best defensive front that I think we've got left in the CFP.
Oh, yeah, bar none.
And the thing about this matchup is everyone was hoping to get a Carson Beck rematch, revenge game against Georgia, but obviously Ole Miss won that game, and now he'll be going against Trinidad Chambliss. Yeah, he's not very happy about that. A QB starting in his first year. Which of these players is going to be more important towards their team's success?
That's so tricky because they're both so important in these roles, right? But I'm going to say Trinidad Chambliss. And it's because, like when we saw against Georgia, his ability to run and make those plays, he was at Division II Ferris State, and now he's doing this. And he's made it perfectly clear he's going to do everything he can to win a national title with this team. Not that Carson Beck isn't, but I just feel like this story around Trinidad Chambliss just embodies what college football is all about in terms of a quarterback being able to make a story and a name for himself after coming from a program that people, and particularly Ole Miss fans, were not paying attention to at this time last year.
It's so funny that you frame it as like what embodies college football right now, because you could argue that Carson Beck does the exact same thing in what the new world of college football looks like as well in the money spending side of things. But both of these guys, Heather, I agree with you wholeheartedly that they're more dynamic. Decider of the game will be Trinidad Chambliss, but as long as Carson Beck plays the role that they have sort of lined him up to as they've gone through this playoff, it feels like he could be just as important and integral to their success so long as he doesn't get out of sorts. But I digress. To pivot back to Ole Miss, regarding the storyline that has encapsulated this team's run, we're entering movie territory despite Curt Cignetti saying that about his own Indiana Hoosiers team. Is this something that can continue to be fulfilled against the Miami Hurricanes team that, as Skubie mentioned, has probably the best defense remaining in this tournament?
They can do it. And I agree with one of the things that you said earlier, just the intangibles of playing with a chip on their shoulder and everyone not focused on the drama that the media is focused on in terms of the coaches on the sideline. But look, you had Trinidad Chambliss say that he's going to return to Ole Miss if the NCAA grants his waiver and he gets another year of eligibility. You have Kewan Lacey, the running back, saying he's going to come back to Ole Miss. This is a group that is committed to each other, not just now, but in the future. And this is something that has never been done before at Ole Miss. Miami has the championship history, right? This is made for Hollywood if Ole Miss can get this done. And they can do it.
I imagine if they made a movie about the Grove itself, it looked like Project X, if those remember like the movie about the farm.
Facts.
Neither here nor there. Heather, we appreciate your presence as always. Enjoy the game.
Thank you, Heather.
Fiesta Bowl.
Thanks, guys.
The queen. All right, so before we go, we thought we would look at some New Year's resolutions because it is that time of the year, right? New year, new me, same me though. Yeah, you got to throw that in there. Shout out LaMelo Ball. That lives on forever. So let's check out a few and decide what we think about them. So here's the first New Year's resolution from Lane Kiffin. This year, I will not troll opposing fan bases.
That's a damn lie.
He's not going to be able to do that.
He's a troll. He always trolls.
He's actually trolling right now.
That's right.
At some point, just open up his Twitter. He'll be trolling somebody.
No
Troll
question.
Kiffin.
No question.
All right, so this next New Year's resolution comes from Texas. Arch Manning. Okay, this year, I will indeed break the internet.
He already broke it, and not in a good way this year. I think next year he has a chance to actually break it in his favor. But he's accomplished that.
He also looked really good in the Citrus Bowl, 155 yards rushing.
Yes.
I mean, he's going to break the internet this year, and he's already done so with the way that he was playing towards the end of the season.
100%.
All right, this one is for Alabama fans. This year, I'll prove life after Saban is more than an identity crisis. Shout out to the graphic department, whoever made this. Look, it says, "Who am I?" behind. Shout out to Julius who made
Word
this.
to Julius indeed. I think it's less a function of what Alabama is and what the rest of college football has come to be.
Yeah.
With the parity, the dispersion of talent, no longer can you stockpile everybody else's first-team starters in your depth chart as opposed to everybody getting now. They're going to poach off of what you thought you were going to be able to stockpile from a talent standpoint, and go toe-to-toe with you on a day-to-day basis.
Man, Saban left at the right time. He sniffed this out and said, nope, I'm out. Peace. I'm not going to deal with this. All right, this next New Year's resolution is for Dabo Swinney. This year, I'll evolve and dip my toe in the transfer portal. No, he's not.
Buddy, you better go head first. Ain't no toe dipping no more. I need you here, all the way in there.
And listen, coming into this year, we thought so highly of Clemson, the most returning talent from the previous year. And you got NFL-type caliber players, a great quarterback.
In every position group, yes.
And you had the worst season that you could possibly have. But dive head first into that transfer portal. Let me tell you, Dabo. All right, thanks for watching the Kickoff presented by Ram Trucks. I'm Skubie Mageza. That is Trev. We really appreciate your time. Y'all have a good day and enjoy the games.